Monday, ladies and gentlemen. It's that time of day. It is time for the Metal Lab. I am joined this week, as always, by my hosts, one Mr. Jay Solomon.
Hi.
And one Mr. Tom Kerr.
Let's party, everyone. In the hopes of fixing the internet, I found an Ethernet cable that was exactly long enough to stretch from the modem in the bedroom underneath the door, around the corner, over the cat food, and into this end of the music room. So if we ever need to break out into some beautiful life, we can.
Leave it to Tom to attempt to use music to fix the internet.
Yeah.
It is a beautiful life. Oh. Hopefully that's not part of the dangerous YouTube algorithm. Otherwise, Tom, you owe us nothing. Because you're going to say beautiful.
Oh, nonsense. With a topical reference like that, how could we not get taken down?
All right. Bit of a somber day, unfortunately. We're all comic fans. We're all Marvel fans here. So we must say, on this day, after 95 years, Excelsior to one Mr. Stan Lee. You will be missed. You lived one hell of a life, though, man. If I get to 95 years, please, guys, ask a lot of questions like, how?
Yeah. And let's fill every single one of them 1/10 as well as he did.
Absolutely. I still got 5 years to hit his levels. I'm just going to say. Because he didn't hit Spider-Man until 40, so.
Yeah, that could happen.
I mean, I was part of something big.
That's true. Well, yeah, I'm not knocking it. You're right. It's a sad day. I mean, it's a day that was bound to come sooner or later. But I think it's a real exciting and inspiring thing that he gave us so much for so long, so continuously, and with such a wonderful generosity of spirit.
Jay, any final thoughts on Stan the Man?
I'm not going to follow Tom, so no.
Yeah, that's what it's really about.
Tom, I want you to give my eulogy when I die.
I'm going to do my best to beat you there, and this is how I'm going to do it.
Funny thing is, I was going to try to give you some kind of a segue so that I can go get mine. Speaking of, Tom, how's your week in HeroClix been? I'm out.
Boy, Jason's made a terrible, grievous error because there's not much for me to say. My week in here
was it?
we'll get to it, Jay. We'll get to it. Yes, I played one game. Oh, you played one tournament? No, I played one game. You played a practice game? No, I went to a tournament. More on that later. So yeah, I did do that. But honestly, it has been a pretty heavy week of HeroClix for me because I've just been going hard into trying to catch up on content, reading a lot of the Art Majestics articles I've missed. I've had a lot of work to do at work, but a lot of it's been tedious sort of stuff where I could listen to podcasts. So I've been catching up on Shots Fired and Starting Over and Critical Clicks. I think I was already caught up with, and the Majestics podcast and Clicked Off, and there'll be more besides. I've been really trying to just simmer in the juices of HeroClix culture because we're getting ready for Worlds, and I'm starting to get really excited.
Awesome. Jay, how's your week been?
I judged.
and we're judged.
Here's my problem with that is, who are you to be a judge of anybody? No, but Jay, carry on.
I did some practice with Devin, who ended up winning, and Austin, who didn't.
I said spoiler alert.
Oh yeah.
Maybe we're talking about a different Devin.
Huh?
No, nothing.
Tom posited that maybe you're talking about a different Devin, which is an absolute false.
Sure. There's so many Devins in this community. There's like, you know the one and the other one, and that's all the same person. Yeah, I've just been practice.
Should always have this.
You absolutely should. Why do we need to be on the rails? Let's just get off the rails. Tom's synth show.
Yes.
But basically, in addition to judging, I keep on going to these practice events. I don't know why, because I don't play this supposed game. Like, the only...
Are you still doing them on Wednesdays?
Is
it still happening on Wednesdays?
Yes. Yeah, the only opens I've able to go to was sealed. The one was sealed, and the one I'm going to this weekend is sealed. And I could have theoretically gone to Jack's instead, but with having the qualification and Emily, who's going with me, already has the qualification, there was no real reason. So,
Fair.
You know,
I think
I think it-
in the top 8 at our event, we already had 3 qualified.
yeah. Well, qualification,
Cool.
spoiler alert, went to 3rd place.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. More
I
on
didn't
that in
even
a
know
bit.
Yeah, and I don't even know why, so I'll be interested to find out. I was busy doing more of this.
Tom, how much of this did you have ready to go, or how much of this are you playing just off the cuff?
Oh, it's definitely off the cuff. That's why it's all just blocky chords and it's all on sign lead, and I'm surprised that you can hear any of it considering it's coming through my headpiece.
Given your natural voice talent and now your actual natural off the cuff music talent, I'm gonna need you to dial one of those back, maybe HeroClix, if you don't mind.
Sure. If anything was going to get dialed back, that would be the one. Get it? It's a pun.
Oh, because HeroClix have dials. Jay, was there anything else you want to talk about the week before we interrupt you some more?
I think that was pretty much it. We didn't have the event yesterday because literally one person pre-registered and I was just tired. And I ended up going on a walking tour of downtown Toronto when I passed by Tom's work, which was funny because he wasn't there for once. So
Yeah, that's true. Although I was probably connected remotely at the time.
Yeah.
I did work from home a lot yesterday.
So,
yeah, the only plans I have for playing this game between now and the end of the year would be that Sealed Open in Rochester. So I'll see some people there.
Are you in fact judging at Worlds then?
I'm working for WizKids. Whether or not I'm judging or demoing is up in the air. Probably demoing, unless they need me for judging. I'd obviously prefer to judge. And the other big name judge, Anthony Barnstable, isn't going to be there. So
Really?
unfortunately, yeah, you won't have any Sonic Booms going on.
I was gonna say, where is the ninja of judging? Judge Quicksilver, the judge.
Yeah, but remains to be seen.
All right. So I guess on that note, I'm the one with the exciting stuff to talk about, eh? What are the odds?
Sure. You want to jump right in?
I mean, it's what I did. Other than bothering everybody with my schizophrenia of team building. I think I sent Tom 4 different versions, one of which was close to the version I ended up playing. Then I put it on the Discord. They suggested something, and then I said that version. Tom said, Tom, this is the one I'm going with.
And go with it you did.
Oh, yes, I did. Yeah, so there was a WKO at 401 Games this past weekend. They're a new location, which needs some definite work as far as the heating is concerned, apparently.
Really?
Because even I felt a little chilly by the end of it. once
I didn't have that
all the
problem.
bodies were out of the top area, it got real cold. You were there for the first round, Tom. How did that go?
Yeah. It's fun. Yeah, I had to do a music and speech gig that night, and it was a lot of fun and very engaging. But unfortunately, it meant I couldn't play. I right up until the last second, had my fingers firmly crossed that I was going to get an email saying, "Actually, we don't need you until 5:30," and I could have at least played Swiss. So in the end, I played 1 round against Devon. I was playing kind of a throw-together police team that I have just been sort of thinking about in the back of my head, consisting of Prime Thanos at full, who chooses to be a member of the police, along with Sheriff Strange, the Grey Ghost, a tank of the Pym pocket variety, and a handful of ID cards. And it's pretty fun, but it went okay. Devin won. I very nearly won. He went back, supported back up, came back out. I ultimately took out his Witch Queen and took his Lockjaw down, but he was able to finish off my Thanos with some call-ins. It was a great little game, but Devin certainly was the better player and had the better team, and I don't know that I will pursue this team too much more, partly because both Grey Ghost and Sheriff Strange are cool for control effects. They're nothing you can actively play. And I just don't find that fun. It may be viable to a certain extent, but it's not enjoyable, since there's no way that you can actively stop people from making many bystanders. It just sort of happens. It's kind of like the old Green Lantern battery back in the day, or playing a Darwin. The big reason to play them isn't an engaging one. And so while it has some, I still don't think the team is great, but whatever viability it has is tied up in something that you can't sink your teeth into, as it were. So it was not as much fun as I was hoping it would be, even if it wasn't a terrible little bit of synchronicity. And then I had to drop so I could go up and play piano. So I turn it over to you.
Okay, I guess, yeah. Jay was judging as he mentioned, so I think he's kind of gone over the gist of his day.
Any complaints?
So, yeah, I was playing in this tournament as well. My team was a cobbled together Alpha Strike because I decided I'm being impatient, but impatiently impatient, as it were. So my team, and this is something that has been played in the past. I've just recently discovered, so it's kind of that thing where it's like, great, I came to a relatively good conclusion based on what somebody else has done. It was Overdrive, the Sam Cap, the Ironheart, Groot at 20 points, a Lockjaw, and shirtless Captain Kirk. To kind of round it all up, it's 300 points. Oh, and there's a couple of ID cards. The version I played had a wanted poster Wolverine, a headmaster Wolverine, Professor X, and a chamber ID. In the future, I'm probably gonna be making a couple adjustments to those for sure. Was there anything else? I believe that was it.
Yeah, your special object.
Yeah, there was a special object, the Venom harness. I've been wanting to use it. I got excited when I saw it, and who better to use it than somebody who obviously needs to put something on his top? Kirk.
It's funny. He would have beaten the Gorn a lot faster with the Venom harness on, I suspect.
Oh, I don't doubt it, given how it worked in the game for sure.
Actually, given how survivable the Gorn is, that it's hard to imagine whether or not he really would beat the Gorn.
Absolutely.
Anyway.
All right, so the way the game worked out for the tournament for me, first round was up against Jimmy, a local player, very good player. He was playing an archer-focused team. So he had Green Arrow and Hawkeye on his team, along with the Green Lantern, the Elseworlds Green Lantern, the common one, as well
Taxi?
as what's that?
Taxi Lantern?
Taxi Lantern, that's the one. Along with a Commissioner Gordon. He had the Oracle on the sideline as well for his Green Lantern, so he could swap out and get some Perplex on his team, along with a Groot and a Carnage. Now, I don't know if Jimmy saw what was coming on my team or not, but he did go move a little forward with his team, but he used a Green Lantern to carry everybody and front-lined himself some Pogs. So it was one of the situations where if you look at my team, I'm going to see a front line of Pogs and have to get through them, right? So instead, I took my team, moved all the way over, forgetting, of course, that Sam Cap adds +3 to my movement on my vehicle that's carrying her. So I perplexed up Overdrive's movement with Sam Cap. This was another situation where a lot of my mistakes were unfamiliarity.
First rounds are always a strange experience.
Absolutely. So I got there. I was a couple squares away, not ready, but I didn't use my sidestep, and there was a reason for this. I was close enough to have the Sam Cap, call in chamber next to all these Pogs. So now it's a free action to get rid of them all. And now I'm also 2 squares away from the Green Arrow, who I try to shoot and I fail miserably. But all is not lost yet, you see. Because I now went with Kirk after sidestepping with the team. I choose, I ended up choosing Empower with Lockjaw, took the Empower from Overdrive, triggered the Venom Harness, and then gave +2 to attack on the Venom Harness to go ultimately +3/+3 on my Kirk, make an attack
punch
on the Green Arrow and liquefy him. Feels good when you only need a 6 on a 19 defense, to say the least. And then from there, Jimmy counterattacked with his Hawkeye. And this is going to be a theme. We'll talk about this later. He missed my Overdrive on the 3rd attack of the Hawkeye, and that ends the Hawkeye's trail of destruction. So, bit of a sigh of relief. And then from there, I'm able to. My team can just kind of be carried by Overdrive and just do damage. Which is it's mind-numbingly awesome. It felt super potent, to say the least. So that felt good. I ended up picking out a win. Jimmy did score some points off of me, but I expect nothing less. Things are going to get scored off of me.
Who went first?
I went first. Did I? I think so. No, Jimmy won map. Jimmy won map on this one.
Did he?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, so we go to the second round. Second round is against Emily. Emily is playing her Sam Cap team. So hers is relying on a Kite Man. She also has an Ironheart on her team. She has a Shredder clone on her team with the Shark Shredder as well. Okay, I'm not. This game went stupid levels of bonkers. How do you expect these teams to play? I'm up. What's left? That's generally how the game looked. But one of the big things that happened was I was having a hard time getting a hold of her dust, or is it dust? Yeah, dust. Because she
Sand?
What's that?
No, dust. Sand is
Dust.
the DC one.
Yeah, Sand is the DC one. So she's running dust. I cannot get past her super senses. This is a common theme for me as well throughout the day, let me tell you. Eventually I just kind of revert to poisoning as best I can. But at one point I did critically miss with a sizable character on the dust. Brought out Aquaman, dropped some water, dropped some fish, and did what they do. And attacked a bunch. In one turn, I think I was able to attack with the 3 fish that I had, pushing them all, and since they're autonomous, whatever. I then took another power action with the Aquaman, pushing him to bring out 3 more fish to each attack again. You can get 6 attacks. I don't care if they're 8 attack and tiny with Force Blast. That's useless unless it's another tiny character. That is... Yep. Those kinds of numbers can eventually add up. You know,
autonomous is too good.
Yeah. And then eventually, like, I was able to completely kill everything on Emily's team. But, I mean, that was going to be the game where just everything met in the middle and one of us was dead by the end. I did my best to make effective use of the boxing ring. I think at one point I had 4 out of my 5 available walking woods out on the table. So, it was exciting times, to say the least. Third round was up against Devin. Hey, spoiler alert, he won the tournament. And in 2 rounds I played against Devin, I didn't win a single one.
Oh.
Devin's team, though, was the Witch Queen LeFay. It was very interesting because it was Witch Queen LeFay, Lockjaw, what was the other one?
Groot.
And something else.
Ironheart.
Ironheart, yeah. It's really hard to kill team. I mean, like, the easiest character to kill on his team is Witch Queen, and that's still an undertaking.
He's also got a Mjolnir for the Witch Queen and some ID cards.
Yes, Mjolnir for the Witch Queen along with some ID cards. Ultimately, this game, the first game I played against Devin, it came down to, I think he had just Witch Queen LeFay left. I'd managed to kill everything but the Witch Queen, but I just had Lockjaw left. So I was chasing him with a Lockjaw. And this was the closer game of the 2 games that we played against each other that day. And like Devin against Devin, and then we after the tournament talked about it. I made some poor decisions on my part. One of which is I should just let the Walking Woods take the long walk up, and should have taken Ironheart for a drive because her outwit would have been the thing to put me over in against the Witch Queen. Because one of the things my team is really heavily relying on is some really big stat boosts on that Kirk, and if I can't get those, I'm having a hard time with the Witch Queen, to say the least. So, some bad decision making on my part in the games I played against him. We get into the top 8. I'm up against Jimmy again, and I swear this game was almost exactly the same as the first one, with the exception of the fact that every time Jimmy tried to roll breakaway, he was trying to roll against a 6 almost every situation, but he was rolling a 1. And then he ended up like one of the last ditch effort, like just to throw salt on the wound for the poor guy. And when I say the same thing, like his Hawkeye missed in the same situation, third attack trying to attack the overdrive, missed the overdrive. Like overdrive was cursed for Jimmy to hit, and because he wasn't getting a line of fire, he wasn't getting the Commissioner Gordon -2 defense. So that was that was another factor. So he was 11 against an 18 in both situations. But to add insult to injury, he was like, I'm going to try to attack with Commissioner Gordon, and then critically missed. He was like, I'm not going to bother anymore. This game's over.
And he had no trouble alerts?
Yeah, he didn't have trouble alerts, unfortunately. If he had a trouble alert, he would have had something to call in. But I think he was already demoralized at this point. Good in the top 4, and now the luck has turned to me. I'm up against Kyle Gilmore. Kyle's team is a Cosmic Theme team. He's got Star Fox, Mjolnir, Lockjaw, Unseen, Groot, a Skyscraper Wonder Woman, a Pin Pocket Tank, and what was the other thing?
It's a nice balanced team.
Yeah, I think that was actually it. And some ID cards, of course. So he gets up in position, and I kind of read the board and I say, anything I want to do is going to suffer a problem when the Colossal Retaliation hits. I intelligently, or sorry, not, let's dial it back, Jason. I reactively chose the Blue Professor X. The Blue Professor X to as a call-in to deal with the two Colossals and the Pim Tank, which paid off. Thank goodness, because that was kind of a little wacky situation for me. And I positioned everything for that just so that I could also follow up with a sidestep adjacent to the to everybody on his team, because we were playing on the what is that map? Kind of recent. I actually think I'm looking at it right now. Avengers Island. I think. Yeah. Nope, that's not the one.
Really?
It's not the
What's
one.
the terrain like?
It's not the one I was thinking of. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
I'm a dummy. I don't remember what the map was, but I do remember.
What does it look like?
There was a little bit of water here and there. I think it might have been Muir Island.
Muir Island, or possibly
Wasn't it the Gotham waterfront?
Half World?
Gotham Waterfront, that one? I don't know. You might know better.
The one with the shipping crates, yeah.
Yes, the shipping crates. Right. Gotham Waterfront. There.
Ah, I wish I had that.
Yeah, because what's important
Tell
about
him
this is, he was posted around some blocking, and at this point I was like, okay, well let's I tried. I used Kirk to kill his unseen as fast as I could, because I knew that had to go. I needed his to minimize the amount of probability control he had. He still had Lockjaw. I knew I would have to deal with that at some point, but I got to Star Fox, and he was hitting quite a few of his attacks and just kind of getting things out of his way for the most part. And then I ended up, what did I do? He was posted against these walls, and the reason I bring this up is I tried the chamber trick. And Chamber, I was rolling against 20 defenses. Kyle was not increasing his attacks. He was just increasing his defenses with his +2 perplex. A little bit rough to deal with. Okay. And I was hitting against a 20 the whole time. So I tried Chamber, needed an 8 with some prob. I missed. Okay. I tried the Chamber one shot on Star Fox. Didn't go. Chamber ended up dying. The next thing is I call in a Wolverine. I'm like, this has got to be the one. I have Empower from Overdrive. If I can pull this off either with a doubles or a second hit, I might have a chance here, because Star Fox is just doing a number on me. And fate had it in for me, or had a gleam of hope for me, and blessed me with a critical hit on my first attack with the Wolverine, who was getting Empower, and I immediately turned around and said, I am doing knockback.
Yep.
I am knocking back, because he was up against a wall. So what then happened is I dealt 5 damage, because I had 3 with the Empower, +1 from the critical hit. So 5 damage. He goes to stop click, gets knocked back into the wall. Peace out. Whew. Big sigh of relief. But now it's a Lockjaw and a couple Walking Woods I got to walk through. So he does get a little bit of damage off with the Walking Woods. I Kirk my way through them with a Venom Harness, because Kirk is really good at killing Walking Woods with a Venom Harness attached to him. If he can attack twice in a turn, he just bumps up his attack twice. 13
that
attack,
Battle Fury.
16 defense. He's got the Battle Fury. He ignores it, right? It's worth the damage if I can kill 2 of those Walking Woods out of the way. And then it was just a matter of getting as many flurries as I could on his Lockjaw. He got his Lockjaw base to me with 1 token left. Made a number of, he chose probability control to avoid getting damaged and stuff like that. And he was on one of the powers, or one of the dials or clicks that Lockjaw has that doesn't have a defense power. I choose poison with Lockjaw, kill his Lockjaw. Which incidentally, in the final round, the top 2, I died too as well. But in this particular situation, a lot of things went wrong for me, including a shape change roll that was just obnoxious, a super sense roll 2 super sense rolls I think he made off of me, and I got robbed by 5s or 6s, and it's a thing that exists, and I got frustrated, but it's one of those situations where I'm not unhappy with the moves I made. I'm just unhappy with the results that they had after each move, because I knew each move came with risk, and I had to accept those risks, and by accepting those risks, stuff happened. And Devin played it to a T, as Devin does. And when we were talking afterwards, I should have taken a little bit more time with or a little bit more attention with my overdrive carries, because when I was carrying with overdrive, I was carrying Kirk, a Walking Wood, Sam Cap, and Lockjaw. Against Devin's team, it would have been more prudent for me to carry a overdrive so that I can still use prob from Lockjaw. Carry Ironheart with overdrive. And then I'd have the outwit there along with the prob, along with everything I need to just absolutely get through the Witch Queen, assuming I can roll a 7 in a lot of cases, because my God, her 18 defense for me is just a nightmare.
Hey, when you can't modify, it's a real problem. And like, people throw it off. They're like, oh, just perplex her down. But like, your modifications aren't always coming from perplex, and you're not always going to be able to get into that position. Like, it is not that easy. That weird world trait really is Nighthawk Prime Light, and it's got some potence.
Absolutely. A little bit of karma for Kyle, though, having lost to a critical miss. Myself and Devin were already qualified with the Nationals berth. So because of the way WKO's work, if first place has it goes to second place. If second place has it, goes down to third.
Cool.
So myself.
And then he got his qualification?
He got his qualification, even though I got the critical hit. So
nice.
He can walk out with a. That's probably the sound that happened in his head.
Yes. When did you get your qualification?
It was the WKO that I went to at Jackson Queen the same day as Ontario Provincials.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That was for next year too. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Well, that one had happened after Nationals anyway.
Oh, all right. Yeah. I'm way out of there.
Yeah, that was actually my second tournament playing with the Monster team. I had played a couple practice games with Amber and Aiden back when Amber was willing to practice with me.
All the same, congratulations to Devin. Playing just, a brand new thing, untested. He had nothing to go on, and I think he played it well. I mean, he played it well against me, and I can only assume he got better as the day goes on, because that's usually how that goes. And obviously he came in first, so good on him.
Yeah. And
good on you, too. You're also brand new team, unpracticed, a lot of moving parts. Made it work.
I need the more moving parts is the problem. That was the problem I ran into with the Ninja Turtles. The Ninja Turtles didn't have as many moving parts as this did. And when you give me too much to do, that's where I function best. So I'm kind of happy with that.
Played your strengths.
I played to my strengths. Good old time. Great show, Jay and Glenn, for judging. Thank you guys very much. This is basically the team I'm playing with Worlds, with a few tweaks that I'm making for the future. So I'm kind of happy with this. And I think I'm ultimately dropping a Wolverine and possibly the Professor X ID. I still haven't made that final decision yet. But I'm close to it. I'm close to those two, or switching a couple things. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. It's time to talk about that thing that Tom wanted to talk about. Tom loves these things. These little pieces of paper we play the game on, the maps. Aww. Tom, what's our exercise today?
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about maps for a couple of different reasons. I mean, firstly, it's always good to talk about maps, and I don't have a PowerPoint presentation or a cartographer's corner or any of that cool stuff. I mean, hopefully someday. But as we are rolling towards Worlds, one thing that occurred to me is that everybody who was working so hard, because Worlds is in such close proximity to Rocktober, and Rocktober was so hot off the heels of the U.S. Nationals and, or rather, the U.S. Cup and the Canada Cup, then I think a lot of people who've been working on their teams for that, and maybe have now moved on to doing their teams for preparing their teams for Worlds, it's a good time to remind ourselves that a lot of the most viable maps in competitive play in the Rock environment are not going to be there. I think that in the last year especially, we've seen the emergence of a lot of maps coming out of the Rock that have been very specialized, very effective at doing very specific things, and they've become the cornerstones of a lot of good teams. And they're not going to be there for Worlds. And so we've got to find other maps that provide good alternatives if you want to keep going on those strategies. And it's a good time to just sort of look back at what are some of the maps to keep your eyes on the WizKids side of things. So I just thought it would be cool to have a little roundtable. The first thing I wanted to do is do a little roundtable on alternatives to some of the major popular Rock maps. If you enjoyed playing on this, where might you look to do something similar going forward, and what are maybe the pitfalls of that, and what are some other just maps that are worth keeping in your periphery as we prepare for Worlds? That sound like fun?
That does sound like a lot of fun. I like maps, even though I forget them 90% of the time.
Well, I
My
feel like
most
we
forgotten
should
game element.
exactly. I feel like we should probably lob an easy one over the plate first. So, if you're used to playing on the Rock Underground, what are you playing on now? What do you think, Jay?
There's definitely two options, but Jay,
Okay.
we'll let Jay answer this one because he's been sitting there
For
bored for a little bit.
looking for alternatives to that, probably Whisket's Office.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been one of the ones I would have said for sure.
Yep.
And
I think the Star Trek Underground is probably the other side of that coin.
That would have been the one I would have said. I don't know why I thought it was gonna be dramatic and show it, because trying to do this is always super terrible.
This is what a map looks like.
Map.
No, are you kidding? A muck time's no good. No, you turned around.
A muck time might as well be a white piece of paper.
I mean, the reason why I said we were kind of starting with lobbing a softball over is that I agree. The WizKids Office and the Rock or the Star Trek Underground are probably the two closest to that effect, but they really aren't equivalent.
No,
I don't think.
Well, I'm gonna say this: I do not like that dungeon map at all.
Agreed.
Like, it is too tight. You know what I'm saying?
At least it's better than the Rock equivalent.
Well, that's what we're saying is the Rock equivalent is the one that we don't like.
The dungeon is too tight. Like, there is walls, and then there's this. You know what I mean?
It's extremely restrictive, and there's like, even when you're packing your Cyclopses, there's very, very often several layers of blocking between you and what you're trying to shoot at, unless they've tried to move out. The points where you get through are just a little bit too tightly packed, and there are just too few corners and too few ways through. So, I mean, I guess I bring it up because of the fact that if you're used to playing in the Rock Dungeon, the Rock Underground, whatever it's called, don't just assume that you can swap out a WizKids Office and you'll be doing the same. You'll have the same end result or the same effect. You really have to consider if there's other ways that you can clog up those joint points. The other thing, of course, about the WizKids Office is there's not a square of blocking terrain on the whole map. It's all walls, and that means you do get a lot of restricted passageways, but you get a lot of large rooms. So it's not really a formation breaker in the same way that the Rock Dungeon is a formation breaker.
Yeah. What was I going to say? Also, Tom is not completely biased because it's the map that he lost to in the top two.
Well,
I'm saying that
fair
because
point.
Tom is not the type.
No, and I'm not, and I'm certainly don't let this come off for a second like I'm blaming the map. I lost because I was outplayed by a superior opponent, not because I got beaten by a piece of neoprene. But all the same, it is the type of map that if you are used to its strengths, you're not going to find a direct equivalency. So think long and hard about the relative pros and cons of the Office versus the Underground. If your team likes indoor and it likes a lot of blocking, those are two maps that function very differently. It is a lot easier to draw lines of fire in the Star Trek Underground than it seems at first. If you sit down and look at that map, there are a lot of open spaces for lines of fire to be drawn. They're not, it's not wide open, but it's not like the Underground is. So if you like your map to be blocking heavy because you like cutting off lines of fire, you'll probably be happier in the Office. Whereas if you like your map to be blocking heavy for the purposes of breaking up formations and ways that people can sort of stack themselves, then you might be happier in the Star Trek Underground. That's what I would say.
Yeah. All right.
I would also say WizKids Office is arguably better for protecting your own colossals because of the way the walls are laid out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you're like a Jason monster team, you definitely probably want that map more than the Star Trek version.
There's also something to be... Oh, I've got my voice coming back at me again. There's also something to be said for the... oh, it's great. It's fixed now. The fact that on the WizKids Office, if you can ever destroy a wall, you're getting 2 bits of hindering terrain for the price of 1 attack or 1 run through a wall, as compared to the Underground, where it's almost all blocking terrain. So destroy 1 square, you get 1 square hindering. So if you want to do some interior redecorating, the WizKids Office is a better one for that, and it actually winds up being slightly better for teams that want to have a bit of combination of blocking and hindering rather than straight blocking, because the destruction of a few walls will open up quite a bit of hindering space for you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
You're actively encouraging people to break the walls of the WizKids offices. That doesn't sound right.
Break the walls down.
I was gonna try to scream that, but I decided against it.
It's probably for the best. We're a few months early anyway.
You know what? He comes out to Judas anyway, so it doesn't matter anymore.
Can you imagine if he had improved movement, destroys blocking? It wouldn't make any sense for the character, but it would be a funny little joke for the entrance theme.
It would make as much sense as Can't Draw Lines of Fire to John Cena.
I like it.
It's like, he just says it, guys. We see him. He's huge. Look at him.
Need to make some kind of "you think you know me" joke for Edge.
That is
Anyway.
protected at wit.
Yep. That's great. I like it.
We got to do a fun episode while we're out on the road.
Yeah, I'm into that.
While we're at Worlds, it's like let's hypothesize some wacky powers for wrestling.
All right, so I want to go to the next one in terms of things you're looking for, and this one I think is again a little bit self-evident, even though there's no direct equivalent. But let's say that you were making a lot of use of the ultimate sacrifice. Where would you want to go? You've only really got one option that I know of, unless you guys know of one besides me.
Now, when you say it's an ultimate sacrifice, is it my sacrifice?
I like it. I like it.
It's the creed I go for.
Yes.
I think I might have broke Jay on that one.
Boy.
Well, there's actually two equivalents if you really dig.
Is there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's two. Well, there's an open air map and there's Bifrost.
So what's the open air one?
You go back to Deadpool and X-Force, there's open air in the cargo ship
plane?
map, nobody seems to be playing.
How would you compare the cargo plane against the Bifrost if you were wanting to play that kind of a strategy, sort of an Ameridroid or a mind control strategy where you want people to jump out in the open?
I mean, you just do it. There's a bunch. I mean, I can pull up the map out of curiosity.
Sure,
I love
I didn't
it.
know we were gonna go
This
to
is
that.
my first introduction to the map. Is me trying to look at it on the realms.
Honestly, I seem to recall that the cargo plane flyers didn't suffer the fall, but maybe I'm wrong.
That's the same as Ultimate Sacrifice, though. If we're comparing to Ultimate Sacrifice.
All right, fair point.
Yeah, it's basically like the four corners of the map. So let's say if your opponent's like right in the middle of the map, it's 1, 2, 3. It's 5. Okay, it's 5 squares to get into there. Yeah, it's not as good as either of those other maps, but if you are looking for specifically the open air equivalent for some reason, like if you have a Unimind who wants to stand in it sort of thing, you might want this map more, but otherwise you probably want the Bifrost in most situations.
Do you think the Bifrost synergizes well with your Staros, or?
I mean, of course it does.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
It's a leading question, but
also the fact that there's a bunch of paths that it's easy to block off or manipulate between all the Walking Woods and all the Staros, which we saw PJ doing at the Canada Cup specifically. I didn't get a chance to watch as many of his games at the World Cup, but I know that with 6 Pogs, you're blocking some stuff off.
That's true.
Based on what I'm seeing here in my first introduction to this ultimate, I'm guessing it's a big orange pit in the middle.
You mean Ultimate Sacrifice?
Yeah.
Not exactly, but sort of.
Kind of. It is more centered.
Yeah, it's good enough.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to make sure I understood it, because it sounds like when I'm looking at this, and that's like that's where people go to die or take damage anyway, and that's what both the cargo plane and the Bifrost do to a different degree. Bifrost does it to everyone, and cargo plane does it to just non-flyers.
That's a good distinction to make, though, because if you've been playing on Ultimate Sacrifice and you were reliant on getting your flyers out there to have a safe place to heal up or whatever, then sure, why not? Mm-hmm. So one that I don't think is quite so easy to proxy would be the hedge maze.
No, not even close.
The closest... Go ahead, Jason.
I was going to say, we were talking about this beforehand. I think the closest I came to hedge maze was the cargo ship map.
I would agree.
Yeah, because they got that one area where it's kind of blocked off, but it's still the hedge maze is an outdoor map, right?
It is. That's the thing that makes it unique.
That's the whole thing about it. Yeah.
It's outdoor, but there's a very restricted movement with all the blocking.
Mm-hmm. It's not the same. It's just got an area that's similar to it, really. And I think that would be the closest. Are people relying on the hedge maze? I've never seen it in action, but I don't.
It's very
It's only essentially been legal for one event that mattered. So
right. Yeah, I was thinking more like that's. I agree with the cargo ship is the first one and the only one that I could think of, because it's not similar in terms of layout, but from a functional perspective, whereby flyers can easily come and go across terrain that they cannot easily be chased by boot movers, and colossals and multi-based figures won't fit quite so well. A large portion of the cargo map will work for that purpose. And I feel like the cargo map is a little bit underplayed. Maybe it's just me, and maybe it's just what I've been seeing. But I feel like there is potential on that map in a world where there are so many either multi-based figures. I'm really thinking Blackbird, or quad-based figures with all the Colossal Retaliators. There are places you can go in the cargo ship where you cannot be Colossal Retaliated against. I think if Witch Queen LeFay does start to take off a little bit, and she's relying on a lot of hypersonic attacks to do her damage, that might be a good map for her, because she can get to places where the retaliation won't be able to reach her.
Yeah, but then your opponent can pick that side of the map and prevent you from using it as easily, sort of thing.
If it's the type of thing where you'd want to make sure that if you win map, you only really choose it against an opponent that doesn't have comparable swing. Like if you can still more or less you play to the end of the map that you want to be on, then I think it's viable. But I agree, if you're against a similarly swingy opponent, it's probably not a good choice.
Yeah,
even if you do it.
I was looking through the maps, and the only other thing that comes even close, I think, to that sort of layout of not being able to formation as easily is probably Half-World.
Yeah, Half-World is another good one, I think, because it's so restricted at the middle specifically for boot movers.
Probably so in conjunction with certain special terrain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Half-World with special terrain is a real pain in the neck.
I'm sitting here panicking, like, what the hell is that one?
Half-World is the other side of the Avengers Affinity. Avengers Infinity. And it's the one where I always assume that half the map is indoor, but I am wrong. It's cool, though. I like the way that the blocking terrain that cannot be destroyed works. It has some interesting interactions. Like your runners who run through blocking terrain simply run through it like they had phasing, and like your Cyclopses just shoot through it. It never gets destroyed. They just shoot and you get to stay. So if you're playing a team that can shoot through a lot of terrain and then potentially put up barriers or just sort of turtle back, like I can see maybe not a Blackbird X-Men, but a Lila X-Men team having some success on something like Half-World. I've never.
An Angel X-Men team could be ridiculous on this team just with all the destroyed blocking.
Yeah. The last one that I was going to mention from the rock maps that I think a lot of people are relying on, and I think the hardest one to proxy, period, would be the Flashpoint Flood. There's just nothing like it.
The closest you can come, and once again, Tom and I talking before the show, Penguin Lounge was one of them. But there's still not even close to enough water to match that level. Weird World ended up winning out on the amount of water on the map. Just in a usable position as well, because Muir Island has water on the outsides, but then you're forced to play your this is obviously a map you want to be bringing your Floral Colossals on, right?
Yes.
But your Floral Colossals are stuck to the outsides to continue the heal game until they move in, and that's kind of that's not the pacing you really want. You want them able to be where they want to be when they're healed, and I think that Weird World does a better job of that. Though Tom came to the conclusion prior to me saying it.
Well, yeah, but you were the one who pointed it out. So let's pat each other on the back here. Yeah,
there's so much hair.
Oh, that's gross. Yeah, it's the closest, and it's not close. If you've got a team that is heavily reliant on the Flashpoint Flood, I think you're going to be struggling. Thankfully, like Flora Colossals, or whatever they're called, they don't require water terrain. They're just better on it. They'll heal without it. They're still viable on a terrain without so much water. They just improve when water is there. But if you do have a map where really water is something you're relying on, if somebody's out there still trying to make King Shark a thing, I wonder where Weird World might be your best option. Maybe the docks.
The docks. It's not a terrible idea. Sorry, Jay, do you have any input on this one?
I was just going to say that obviously a certain Chris Stockhouse doesn't think that it's viable, or any WizKids options are viable considering he hasn't been playing the Flores recently. So
Is that true, or maybe he's just moving
I
on
mean,
with
he could be
it?
trying different stuff out, but I have seen that he's not playing that team right now. So
Chris is also if you want to just isolate a player, he's a player similar to PJ Bolin, where he won't go twice in the same time. Like he will go, he'll play at a tournament, play this team, and the next tournament it's this team, and then the next tournament after that it's another team. So
I mean, it's not
I respect
literally
that.
true. Like he did play that team at both the World Cup and the Canada Cup, but like I do get what you're
there were
saying.
adjustments.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, he likes to move on,
Yeah.
and I get that, and I'm that way too. I don't like sort of being chained to a team even when it does well. I think that there's many different teams that can do well, and I think that if you can only play well with one team, then you're more limited than I want to be.
I think you're being a little hard on yourself.
Maybe, but I mean, I'm not saying that I'm only good with one team. I'm saying that I like trying different things just to make sure that I'm in that habit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I am guilty of taking a season and rolling with a team sometimes, or at least an individual type of strategy, as it were. This season, I've been a little bit more schizophrenic about my builds. I can definitely say that. As we've seen with the Monster team, the Turtles team, the team I played this past weekend, I'm not in a singular direction, though Groot does find his way onto as many teams as I could possibly put him on.
Yes. Building a team that doesn't have the pin particle tank on it is anathema to me. So
I mean, that's pretty easy to do considering it doesn't break theme.
you're correct.
I have the same problem now with Haha Joker. I just can't see myself playing either a non-theme random team without him or a Gotham team without him. Or
Yeah, retirement's gonna hit us both hard, my friend.
maybe I'll play Jakeem one last time before he goes. He's still fine.
Yeah, and I think that there's potential there.
Actually, no, he was watch listed, therefore he's bad. Never mind.
That's true. Everyone who gets put on the watch list is terrible now. Unplayable.
I think that's my favorite running joke that we have.
Yeah, because nothing that's ever been on the watch list has come out okay. Looking at you, Faust. Looking at you.
I mean, look at Spiral.
Yeah, the Paris Gordon special brings it back.
Oh.
Proves the viability.
God, I know we all said it on this channel where it's like, we're probably not going to see her meta play, but doesn't make her bad. And then Paris is like, yeah, she's not bad. And now watch with a resource. Oh.
Right. Yep.
That's right. With a resource, nothing is bad. All right.
I guess if you just want to round out map discussion, because that was the sort of the if you were playing Rock, here's what you'd be playing instead. Anyone else just want to throw out any other maps to remember, just for the fun of it?
Well, as far as Jay, go ahead, because I thought I was coming with something smart, but
Are we seeing Rock maps that we want? Good, new?
Or just maps
No,
in
no.
general, anything you
Yeah,
want
like
to say.
that. We've kind of finished the Rock equivalents, but there are still lots of other maps that are worth talking about. Anything else that comes to mind is remember this when you're building.
Well, we already covered the two big ones, like the blank map and the all blocking map. I'm actually just looking at my own. Right, you know what? I think everybody should be prepared for extended starting area maps.
Mm-hmm.
Because
a few.
the alpha strikes are already swingy enough, but when you add essentially 4 squares on top of that, there's a lot of those kind of maps now. So don't count your opponent's swing only taking a normal starting area into account. There's plenty of 4x4s or whatever to be mindful of. Is my main my main hot tip.
Yeah, I would segue off that because one of the ones that comes to my mind when you mentioned those is the poison ivy layer garden, whatever they call that. It's a 4x4 on either side with blocking terrain on the other corners, so it really forces you into that diagonal path. It's almost all hindering, and the map bonus, if anyone's buying into it, allows you to make free attacks against people that are inside that hindering. So if you're that and Wakanda, there's a lot of hindering to be considered. If you're not able to pack things and ignore it, then it's going to be hard to get around if you don't ignore it when you're moving, and somebody throws you onto Wakanda or onto Poison Ivy. And if you can't deal with it for making range attacks, or you can't deal with stealth, then I think you might be in some trouble. More so even than in the Rock case, because you don't have really maps that just suppress hindering altogether for the most part, besides maybe like Amok Time.
Mm. Also, to add on to Wakanda, if you're not ignoring hindering terrain, you're having a hard day with Wakanda, and you might have been planning a winning map roll. And I do want to take a second to remind people: sometimes, regardless of how good your map roll is, you will lose.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to be prepared to play on any map. And it has happened to me with plus sevens against plus zeros in the past. I have won maps with plus zero against plus sevens in the past. It's not impossible. It can happen. You can pull out a win on that sort of dice roll. And you do have to prepare yourself and your team to not suddenly lose when you don't get map choice. That is one mental game that is really hard for a lot of players, and you do have to kind of brace yourself for that. If your team, loses on a particular map type, you need to go back and solve that problem.
Concur.
And it's also interesting that you mentioned that now that we have all these constellations now, you can actually get a benefit. Like some of the constellations are actually better than the actual map bonuses. So
I love the Poison Ivy one. 6 free hindering. That's a great way to mess some people up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they're counting on a map of a certain build, and now you're adding 6 hindering terrain to power. Because whoa, hold on.
Yeah, well, I mean, going back to our Bifrost example, like I'm pretty sure 6 hindering terrain in certain points the Bifrost can create a wall of hindering.
Yep.
yeah, for sure.
That's annoying.
That reminds me of arguably, or I guess one of my favorites, which is the Joker or Haha Hacienda one, which gives Joker +1 attack. Because Haha Joker with an 11 attack the whole dial, he needed more help. So
well, and people
talk 5 points for +1 perplex to attack the whole game.
People talk a lot about the Gotham City. Is it the Waterfront? Is that what it's called?
Super senses.
Yeah, super senses if you have stealth, right? Or is it super senses if you're in hindering? It's one of the
super senses if you have stealth and are in hindering, but only on a 6.
Yes, it is limited, but it's still good. I mean, the combo everyone likes to talk about is Goblin King because he's so often taking stealth anyway. He's very often having a symbiote, and if he's got a symbiote and he's got stealth and he's hanging out and hindering and adding up, roll it on a 6. That's one super senses that he doesn't necessarily have to take. He can take combat reflexes or something and really, get her done. So, but there are other combinations, obviously.
Mm-hmm. All right, so a little bit of food for thought. Also, never forget, guys, if you're playing against Colossals, unless there's active hindering there, it's a blank map to them if it's outdoor. All right, on that note, it is time to move into questions. And, of course, we always take a second when we move into questions to thank our patrons over at patreon.com/periodforclicks. You can join us at any valuation, get access to our patron Discord, which added a little bit of thought process to my own teams, and we try to share as much knowledge as we can on the Discord with you guys. As far as if you have your own team builds or you have rules questions, we try to do our best to keep up with that and talk to each other about it. So check that out, patreon.com/marriedwithclicks. And I also wanted, before we move into questions, take a moment of silence for Stan the Manly, the man who brought us a lot of Marvel and a lot of history and comic books. All right. So
it's hard to.
What's that?
It's hard to picture him without picturing him smiling.
I don't think I've ever seen the man not smiling. Maybe that was just something his mustache did to him.
That's true. Maybe.
Just some of the work that he did is etched in my skin, so he'll be with me forever.
You bet, man.
Excelsior.
Excelsior.
Right. So, first question coming from the Alpha patron, Mr. Michael Fedor.
Hey.
Speaking of Patreon, so I'm starting to think about and put together a team for Thursday. It's 135 points too much of a commitment for a 300-point constructed team? Hint: it's Prometheus. I mean, Devin used Witch Queen LeFay at 150 points. If the
it's
commitment
definitely
that you're making is solid enough, then yeah, it's worth it. It's just a matter of knowing what you need. I think is really the key, right, Tom?
I agree. Certainly, I would never be afraid of that. I mean, there are plenty of people who are playing Unimines. There are plenty of people who are playing Witch Queens. There's Goblin Kings. 135 is not too much at all. So I wouldn't be worried about it from that perspective. I would just either make sure there's no real possibility that he's going to die, or that whatever's left can get the job done if he does. I mean, the problem with Prometheus is dial length to a certain extent, but there's still 135 points is a lot, but 165 points is also a fair chunk. So I wouldn't be worried about it. I would just be cognizant of the one match where somebody punks you, and then you gotta make the rest of your team do the work.
Yeah. Jay, anything you want to add?
Yeah, there's definitely nothing inherently wrong with committing half of your points or even more, as long as the rest of the team complements it and does things and can make up for it as far as damage output goes, because you don't want a random huge alpha strike that happens to hit really well, like a Wolverine or whatever, to cripple your whole team. So as long as your team is overall good and balanced. So
Of course, if you can wait for Exospecs, then Prometheus will be even better. And I mean, I know everyone is better with Prometheus or with Exospecs. That's what everybody says. Everybody says it, and everybody's right. The Exospecs make everything better, but some things are more better than others, and I think that's a great example because Prometheus is the one that can choose attack and damage, right?
Right.
But it's still limited on speed. Hell, not anymore.
Nope. Oh darn! I can't use my sidestep. Use it first.
Yep. That's nearing Super Skrull levels of silly good times.
Oh boy. Oh. Whew. Oh, it feels good. All right. Move next. I was going to address this first in chronological order, but I want to address this a little later in the question period because this one's going to take a little bit more length and a little bit more explanation on my part. But it's official. This episode gets a stamp. Bam. Mr. Chris Stockhouse. He has a question.
Yay!
Hey.
Just the best.
We've got a couple fake episodes recently. It's scary, actually, because Chris hasn't asked some questions on some episodes, and it's mostly been my fault for putting the post up about questions a little too late. I'm supposed to put that up around noon. I'm bad.
I would always blame you anyway. I never blame Chris. You kidding? He's the best.
Not his fault. Definitely not his fault. Absolutely not. I'm making a fake show. Fake show. All right. So he starts off top 15, huh? Couldn't even mention the guy who makes your episodes official. Three top cut appearances in WKOs for me in a row with weird teams, in my opinion. I think I like my Blackbird Sam Cat build the best, probably going to stick with it and practice crap out of it for the next few weeks. Question for the lab. Is Goblin King going to dominate Worlds? It could really be boring if each round comes down to hitting a certain percentage of rollouts or roll-offs. First of all, before we get into his main question, to address his comment about the top 15, the Lane Miller of Clickstuff posited to about 15 players familiar
18.
with a lot of players, 18 players across the community who are well-versed in who's good and who's great and who's awesome in the game of HeroClix. I was one of them. Jay is also one of them. And our opinions, we ranked a list of 15 players who we thought are best top 15, and then scoring was made, and then Lane put together a list of top 15 based on that input.
And it was just to clarify, it was the idea of it's like the hot 15. It's not really like the best 15 or the greatest of all time. It's like, who's doing well, who are we looking out for. He was talking about the fact that it was based on like the college football model, which I'm sure that means a lot to someone who's not me. But the idea was not to try to create some kind of comprehensive list of like who are the great HeroClix players and luminaries of history, but rather who's having a good time and who are we watching for rolling forward. That's the way I understood it.
And I also want to say on this one, you come to my show and you presume I didn't put the correct names on there, sir. You presume much, sir. Good day, sir.
I said good day, sir.
But to actually address his full question, is the Goblin King going to dominate Worlds? It's going to be there. Is everybody going to play it? I'm practicing against it now. That's for sure. Amber, get a Goblin King. Let's go. You know what? I'm having a hard time picking a team for Amber. Maybe it's just going to be a Goblin King. Yes, I'm sure a number of Goblin King mirror matches. they're going to be rough.
Yeah.
They're going to be rough to watch for sure. They are not camera-friendly matches at all. And the idea of the game coming down to rollouts, I mean, teams that aren't Goblin King have got to think about Pulse Wave, because that's really your only option when you're dealing with these rollouts. Like, okay, well, am I going to be the one brave enough to go Pulse Wave against his Goblin King? I think that's what's going to come to a lot of cases. I don't know. What do you think, Tom?
It's a good question. I don't know. Like, I feel like I'm naive. I still believe in hero clicks, and therefore I don't want to see a field full of Goblin Kings. I think that there are a couple things that make a Goblin King a hard call. But there's three things to come to my mind as about reasons why I don't think we'll see a field full of Goblin Kings. Number one, that the fear of the mirror match is real, and we'll be at Worlds long enough in the lead up to it, especially as people are grinding away and stuff and seeing what other people are doing. I feel like anyone who's thinking of Goblin King and if they really think a lot of other people will be playing it, then it's a terrible mirror match. It's essentially a roll-off, unless you both just decide to go hard. And if you do, then as soon as somebody's losing, it's really in their best interest to just run forever. And if they run forever, it's going to be impossible for the guy to catch them. So again, we go to roll-off. And that will both weed it out, and I think that it will be very dispiriting. And I think a lot of people don't want to commit to something that is dispiriting in that way. So that's reason number one. Reason number two is that it's a known quantity. Everyone kind of is aware of it being out there, and it is on a lot of people's lips, which means that those who aren't playing it are planning against it. And although there is no, magic, wave of a magic wand that can get rid of it, I think that there are enough different strategies you can put in place to try to give you some kind of a leg up on it that it will weed them out little by little. I can see Goblin King doing well. I just, again, don't think everyone's going to be playing it. And the third thing is that, frankly, Goblin King is not to everybody's taste. If you've ever tried just playing that sort of a one-man army, I mean, I can't remember what show it was on. It might have been on his appearance on Mary McClick's here, or one of the Clicked Off episodes. But Daniel Powell basically said, if you want to play Goblin King well, then you've got to have the conviction to spend to get 10 points and then spend 49 minutes choosing phasing and stealth and running across the map. And if you don't have the wherewithal, fortitude, the fortitude of game contrary soul-crushing spirit to spend 49 minutes running, choosing the same powers and just going across the map, rinse repeating until your opponent rage quits, then it's not for you. And frankly, I just don't think it's any fun. So yeah, admittedly, a lot of people aren't going to Worlds thinking about fun, but I think enough of them are, or at the very least, if they're practicing with their Goblin Kings, they're discovering it takes a special kind, and I don't think there are that many people that are that kind.
Jay?
I mean, we saw a fair enough amount of it to at the World Cup to think that there are people who are going to do it. So, yeah, the problem is that you don't want to be sitting at a table for 50 minutes guaranteed every single round. There's a certain kind of person that can do that, and a certain kind that can't. Reminds me of the good old days of the double con Loki. That was, did I say good old days? They were terrible. They were absolutely terrible.
You're right. I think you misspoke.
Yeah.
And the thing is, there's enough stuff out there that can work against it. Like, there are pulsive call-ins. Darwin is still a thing. A Blackbird, Real Boy, and a Leech can matter a lot. And there's enough counters, and it's just so well known. It's not a bad play, but it's just that there's ways around it, and it's just well known enough that it's going to involve understanding that everybody there has considered it and is building against it. I never like to run with the absolute number one obvious option for that reason, but I guess there's enough wiggle room in the Goblin King teams that you could theoretically put something together to counter your counters if you really had to. I don't even know. I don't know anymore. I was pretty sure there was only one good build with it, and when there's only one good version of something, it's like it's too easy to play against or to plan against. But clearly, it's still winning events, so what do I know? And we've already concluded that I can't make predictions, so I don't even know why I'm on the show anymore.
Wait, when did we come to this conclusion? I just want to make sure I marked the date correctly.
I mean, I did call Devin's build trash, so...
Yeah, okay, there we go. There it is.
Do we not to poke the bear too much, but do you want to address the top 15 at all? It certainly has a lot of people talking and arguing.
I wouldn't mind because my list is very similar, so I don't really
I
care.
was gonna say mine is pretty close to the end result, to be brutally honest. I mean, ultimately, there's a couple names on there that aren't on my list, but they're slotted into positions I put people that I'm more familiar with locally on. If that makes any kind of matter or difference. And that's the thing that Lane pointed out. It's like regional bias does come into this at some point where there's a couple players in there I never saw. So.
And it's not, I don't think it's like people like thumping the Bible of their local meta. It's more just that you see what people are capable of and you're more aware of the achievements of the people that are in your periphery. And local doesn't necessarily mean close, especially not for you two. I mean, local could mean anywhere within a 300-mile radius, but it's harder to have a strong sense of what people are doing on that Roll20 or what people are doing in local events in the deep south. You know, it's a little far outside our periphery.
I mean, given the events I go to, I consider Michigan and like upstate New York to be local. Like I go there anytime there's a tournament. So,
you know. I mean, yeah, George Massey is a rock's throw away from us. So.
Yeah, and like all the Pusheen guys and stuff, like they come to us often enough that certainly they're well within our purview. I mean, no one here is forgetting about the existence of guys like Kenji and stuff. So,
I am guilty of forgetting his name. Actually, to be brutally honest, I think if there was there's one name I did miss on the list that should have been on the list. It was Kenji's. And
Kenji actually did end up in the top 10 for me.
As I think he very well should have. But do you think that it's a good exercise? Because
it is. It's in good fun. As long as you don't take it seriously.
Jay, you took the words right out of my mouth. It's fun, and don't get butthurt about it. Anyone who's getting butthurt about whether they're on it or whether they're not, or alternately anyone else who is on it or isn't. Like it's a fun exercise. I think it's neat because it gives another outlet for people who like the game and like the culture around the game to talk about it. And I'm a big fan of rankings because rankings are like a spectator sport. Whenever you're reading or listening to somebody ranking something, you are in your mind placing where you'd be putting the things that they're ranking. It's a lot more engaging as something to work with than just a general sort of synopsis of good players in the game. It's fun to create a ranking, and no one's really saying that this person's better than this person's better than this. That's why it's more like a hot 15 than a best 15, because they're just sort of saying who's doing well, how are things, who are people watching, and why, and then that will change, and everybody had better just not get butthurt when that does change, because the game is organic, it is flowing, but it's fun I think it's fun to talk about. I think it's fun to think about.
I don't even think the rankings themselves matter so much because as far as I'm concerned, like my top 5 and the top 5 that actually ended up being there were so similar. And it's also fluid. Like, you know, if Daniel and PJ sit against each other, you could go either way. Like, you know,
100%.
So.
Yeah, and like, you know, it goes way further than that, right? Like if Daniel and Ed sit across from each other, then it can go either way too. I agree. The rankings are almost less important than just sort of at any given moment what's on people's mind, and I think that's kind of fun. It's a fun thing to see who people are thinking about in the context of these major events. I think it'll be harder to do during a period where there aren't as many big events. As I say, we are kind of coming right off of a fairly continuous run from Canadian Nationals and U.S. Nationals through the Rock Cup and the U.S. Cup and Rocktober and now World Cup. It's a great 5 months or so for the flow of the competitive game. I think it'll be harder to maintain that momentum after that, but we'll see.
Yeah. Depending on how many Rock events we get under the new merger sort of thing, but we have to see on that.
Right.
And I think if anything, if you feel slighted by this, that you're not on there, get out there. If I see your name out there, I'll put you on the list. If I see you at one of these tournaments that we're at, I'll put you on the list. If I think you can do it. Or I'll forget your name, forget to put your name on the list like I did with Kenji. And then I'll come on my show and I'll say, oh shoot, I forgot to put that guy on the list. Oh wait, he made the top 15 anyway without my help. So
exactly. Perfect.
That's how good he is he spread beyond just my name.
This is a game where it's pretty easy to get up there very quickly. Like I'm just looking at the list now. Yeah. Like Tyler's on there. He's very recent. So
I would argue that I'm fairly recent, other than locally.
I mean, first Canada Cup, but you know.
Yeah, and like there was a Super Q around that time too, but like it's ebbed and
I
flowed.
really want to know who voted you number one.
I do too, but I don't feel comfortable asking.
Also, my vote is for sale. $700,000 is the starting price. If you want me to add a glowing review, we pay by the word.
I like it's a funny joke, and yet the way that people pay for like extra specs that they're probably just going to be able to get in a couple months anyway.
I think I've seen them go for as high as 75 American.
People are insane. People are insane. People are insane. They're insane.
All you had to do was go out to a tournament.
Anyway.
Yes and no, considering.
Yeah, no, it's not that easy, but
I don't think WizKids, because the problem is that there was 20 in the kit. I don't know if any stores is getting more than one. So once you hit 21, you know, it's a matter of, and then the judge doesn't even get one. So
all the same.
But also, there's so many of them that, you know, if you don't make it in one place, you'll go somewhere else. So you're fine.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be enough for everybody.
Or you show up at one venue where they had 22 people, and then you show up at your next venue, they had 12.
Yeah.
It might have happened. I'm not going to say it did or didn't. All right. We do have another question in the Facebook before we continue on this rabbit hole of the top 15. So congrats on those 15 players. Get out there, get playing if you want to get on that list. Beat those players if you want to get on that list. Beat those players publicly, though.
Yeah, it creates another like little soft objective for some people. Like if people really like take it that seriously, then maybe it'll mean more people will travel just to try to like see their name in the lights of Lane Miller's top 15. If that's what gets people playing HeroClix, anything that gets people playing HeroClix, as far as
at the risk of naming names, or sorry, without the risk of naming names.
There we go.
Said. I'm not going to name names, but one of the people on this list came up, messaged me at one point and said, so and I didn't know they were one of the selectors, and they just asked me, he's like, so how you been doing in tournaments lately? I was like, I'm not in the top 15. Stop asking.
Perfect. It's too bad he didn't ask you after this weekend then.
No, I just still said I'm not in the top 15. Like I can win WKO's and what is the other thing I've won? State or provincials in Quebec.
You came second in nationals, didn't you?
Once, yeah, and then I was beat by some beautiful man with a beautiful voice.
And third,
no, that was
who looks like this on camera.
Sorry, I meant actual Canadian nationals, the one in Ottawa.
That top 3. I got top 3 on that one. I lost to Kenji, who
I was gonna say you were beaten by a man whose name you can't remember.
I remembered the name. I just forgot to put it on my list.
Oh.
I'm a bad man. I'm
Moving
sure my
on.
list will look a lot different next time Lane asks. I don't know how frequently he's going to get this up.
Did they say it was going to be a quarterly thing?
I think that's what he said he wanted it to be, yeah.
Interesting.
All right. Next up, Stephen Clark Jr. Wants to lead first. Say, rest in peace, Stan Lee. You will be missed. Excelsior!
Agreed.
I'm excited. I'm excited. This Worlds is my first Worlds in a long time. I'm excited that I'm on a team called the CWO. Can't wait to play teams again. I have 2 questions. I love when teams show up with wrestling names. It's kind of exciting.
The Clicks World Order is ever growing. It's
just like the real New World Order. Is that what you're saying?
I honestly like. I kind of thought I'm like, is it going to go the way of the real? Are we going to get a Wolfpack and eventually is Horace Hogan going to be in there?
He does have 2 questions as a follow-up. Who of the Married with Clicks crew is going? Well, everyone you see on camera is going to be there. I'm going to be in a playing capacity. Tom's going to be in a playing capacity. Jay's going to be in a working for WizKids capacity. And Amber's also going to be in a playing capacity.
Yes.
Mike White, unfortunately, will not be able to join us. But we have found a replacement for Team Saurier in a Canadian time. Mr. Stephen Ogden.
It's going to be the best.
It's going to be great.
I love teams.
Or Devin.
Well, you know, I did.
Devin will find a team.
Yeah, Devin. Yeah, guys, if you need a third, Devin Owens.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Don't sleep on this dude.
The kid is math incarnate.
I think I found a team for him with the person that I played teams with last year, so I think it'll work out. But if he is not otherwise recruited by the end of tonight, jump on that. So
Yeah.
Well, okay, he's a little young, so don't just jump on.
Let's leave that where it is and move on.
Move on to a second question. If you had to pick the winning team for Worlds, what team would it be? If I was to say specifically, I'm between Starro and a Gotham team.
I think he means like teams.
Oh,
The way,
teams.
like as in people, Clicks World Order and Pusheen and Majestics and Phoenix Nest and all that
I'm
stuff.
sure some Canadians will win it.
Yeah. That's the likeliest scenario.
Exactly. Tom, we're on such a bad streak. I'm on a bad streak of sealed pulls, like sealed pulls, and you're on a hot streak. So I think we're going to even each other out, and we're going to be half decent on our side, like two-thirds of the packs. And then Steven, I've never seen the guy not pull good. So
Right.
I distinctly remember having to play against his Kingdom Come Superman in a World's Finest sealed. So the hell with that. I don't know. What team do you think is actually going to win it, Tom? It's hard to say with sealed, isn't it?
It is very hard to say. And like you want to be kind of smarmy and kind of say who's got the most people. Like Juggernaut at this point has a ton of people, and I think the hero, what is it, Clicks World Order, CWO, does too. I don't know. I have a hard time keeping track of it all, if I'm being honest. Like the teams it's a lot for a lot of people. I think teams are really becoming not just the event teams, but rather the idea of being parts of teams is really becoming a major cornerstone of their HeroClix experience. And hey, whatever, like let's rewind to what I said 5 minutes ago. Whatever gets you playing HeroClix, it's cool with me, man. But figuring out what team I would like to lean towards in this setting, I don't know. Whatever team Paris Gordon's on, that guy wins a lot.
To backpedal myself though, if Majestics is playing, they're a consistent shower. As far as play, like they've won at least once, and they've come close at least 3 times.
I would say that Phoenix Nest also has it coming.
I mean, they were all seconds at Worlds events last year, and they have PJ, so
yeah.
Hard to not say Phoenix Nest, really?
Yeah. There's a lot of good ones, though. I mean, honestly, it is anyone's game. Even more so than like we talk about what figures are going to do their best. In a lot of ways, that's in some ways easier. Field is anyone's game, and there are a lot of good HeroClix players out there.
Yeah. And what I do like about the team sealed is that. Sorry, go ahead, Jake. Go ahead.
I was gonna say team sealed is not as much like sealed as normal sealed is with being able to build actual good teams. So I do feel like
true.
There is more skill there than straight sealed. So I do feel like skill does help the cream rise at the top. So.
Yeah, and the variance that you get inside of team sealed in 6-packs, it kind of fixes itself in that sense. So.
And I mean, we're also rocking just off. Well, pun not intended, but worked out well. We're coming right off of the rock, in which just about everybody had a presence of the major teams that I know of. I think, except Pusheen. And so, in a way, that's sort of like you might be considered by some a dark horse pick, since Pusheen it wasn't there, and maybe you're going to catch the people by surprise. I don't know. There's a lot of people.
And if they're the dark horse, then that puts us at like the black hole horse, right? Uh-oh. Tom has gone mute and...
No, I'm good. My my better half had to make Pusheen jokes, and so I paused to laugh at them.
All right. That does seem to do it for questions today, though. So I'm glad we were able to pull the answers straight out dog form.
Nothing on YouTube? That's weird.
No, nothing on the YouTube. The chat's kind of quiet. I guess everybody's a little sad about Stan the Man, and I kind of get that.
Yeah, makes sense.
They all wanted us to go to bed early, and I will take it.
Maybe it is. We do have to discuss something after the show, because this, ladies and gentlemen, is episode 198.
Oh,
gosh.
The episode before we go to Worlds is episode 200.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, shoot. Why couldn't it have been my birthday?
Bing, bing.
That frog ruined that song forever, I tell you.
Absolutely murdered that song. With that said, Tom, is there anything you want to mention before we start wrapping it up?
It's the most exciting time for HeroClix. Keep on chowing down that content. I am so excited for Worlds. Yes.
Jay?
I'm very excited for Worlds in whatever capacity WizKids allows me to work for them at.
On that note, I want to thank everybody for watching live. If you're watching in the archives, thank you very much as well. Check us out at patreon.com/marriedwithclicks. Find out what your valuation that you want to join us is. If you want to join us at all, any help is appreciated. And any help is appreciated in turn. You get access to all kinds of cool stuff. As well, we want to thank our long-term sponsors over at MajesticCCG.com. Check out the premium site with the Apex Insiders, and that's MajesticCCG.com/Apex-Insiders. Your one-stop source for all things HeroClix. Great brains work on that site. The premium site gets a lot of awesome strategy talk. A lot of really cool stuff goes on there. And occasionally my madness finds its way out into the ether, and sometimes people are silly enough to listen to it. But as always, I want to thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for checking us out on the Patreon, checking out MajesticCCG.com. And guys, Worlds, it's ticking away. Like I said, we're at episode 198. When you're watching episode 200, you should be ready to go for Worlds. And in order to get yourself ready to work for Worlds, get those teammates together, get your friends together who are planning on going to Worlds, or even if they're not planning on going to Worlds, they're planning on helping you get yourself ready. Get yourself ready by practice, because practice makes your team better. Have a good night, everybody. Oh, Tom.